Hello everyone, my name is Sue. Welcome to my true crime channel. Thanks for joining me tonight. I've got a real roller coaster story for you. Ever heard of the John Poulos case? It's one of those stories that makes you sit up and pay attention, with twists and turns that'll keep you guessing. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around to hear all the details. So without further ado, let's take a look. The man in this video is 35-year-old John Poulos. He recently walked out on his wife and 3 kids, transferring their entire marital estate to an offshore trust, leaving them in a state of financial hardship while he embarked on a new life with a 21-year-old DJ from Colombia who he met online. While his family back home were left to fend for themselves, John travelled the world with his new love interest, even bragging on Twitter about the woman from Colombia who he had invited on a vacation before even meeting her. This tweet was posted in December 2022, and just over a month later, surveillance footage captured John trying to dispose of his girlfriend's lifeless body and subsequently trying to flee the country. This is the shocking case of John Poulos. John Poulos was born in 1988 in Franklin, Wisconsin. He married his high school sweetheart, Ashley, in 2009, and the couple had 3 beautiful kids together. To the outside world, they seemed to be the perfect pair. But in 2016, their happy family was dealt a devastating blow. Their eldest son, just 4 years old at the time, was diagnosed with an extremely rare form of cancer, affecting only 350 people annually. John and Ashley became tireless advocates for their son, fighting for FDA approval of a promising new treatment and rallying community support to raise $60,000 for medical bills. In 2017, after 13 grueling hours in surgery to remove 150 tumors, the Poulos brave little boy finally emerged cancer-free. His inspirational journey resonated nationwide, and the family were even invited as honored guests of the Speaker of the House for the President's State of the Union address in 2018. There the family epitomized strength, hope, and perseverance in the face of such frightening odds. They became a symbol of hope for many couples throughout America. Yet few could have imagined the tragic troubles that would soon embroil the Poulos household. What many didn't know was that behind closed doors, the Poulos' marriage was far from perfect. John's abusive and controlling nature had taken its toll on Ashley. In 2021, after years of living in fear, she finally filed for divorce. Before the divorce was even finalized, John transferred the family's entire marital estate into an offshore trust, leaving Ashley and the children with nothing. He abandoned them all and soon started living the high life, residing in various European countries including Cyprus, Turkey and Ukraine, before establishing residence in Texas. John also completely withdrew from his children's lives, not seeing them in person since leaving Wisconsin in January 2021. He also refused to pay any child support despite a judge ordering him to do so. The divorce process quickly became messy, with John exploiting legal loopholes by declaring himself a sovereign citizen throughout the proceedings. This meant that he incurred no legal fees for himself, and at the same time caused his wife to incur thousands of dollars in attorney fees. What his wife didn't know at the time was that while their divorce proceedings were still ongoing, John had already moved on and had met someone new. In April 2022, John met 21-year-old Valentina Trespalacios on the popular dating app Tinder. She was a popular DJ who was making a name for herself in Colombia's capital. She started DJing in her teens and by 21 had become a big part of Bogota's nightlife. She specialized in Latin dance music like reggaeton and guaracha, playing at all the top clubs, and was even named the Breakthrough DJ of the Year at the Colombia Dance Awards in 2019. John fell hard and fast for Valentina, so much so that before even meeting her in person, he invited her on an all-expenses-paid luxury vacation to Cancun, Mexico. Here the two got to know each other better and decided to make their relationship official. What followed was a jet-setting relationship, with John making multiple trips to Colombia over the next several months to visit Valentina in Bogota. He showered her with lavish weekly gifts of cash, though the exact amounts are unknown. It was clear that John was completely smitten, and only a few months into dating, he proposed marriage. In December 2022, John Poulos provided a surprising response to a viral Twitter prompt asking users to share their craziest first date stories. Invited a Colombian woman on vacation without meeting her first. Now we're getting married, John tweeted on December 17th, alongside a photo with his fiancée, Valentina Trespalacios. At the time, the post painted a picture of an enviable modern romance that bloomed across continents online. But just over a month later, this supposed fairy tale union would come to a horrific end at John's own hands. John Poulos arrived in Bogota on January the 19th, 2023. The plan was for him to remain in Colombia and start his new life with Valentina. He told her that he had gotten them an apartment in the city center, although it would later be revealed that it was a short-term rental. Security footage shows Poulos wheeling a large blue suitcase into the apartment, the very same suitcase Valentina's body would be found in just 2 days later. The following day, John Poulos went to Valentina's mother's house, where he went to pick her up with all her belongings, so that she could move in with him. This image shows the moment when John pulls up in his grey rental vehicle. After embracing in a passionate kiss, the two go and collect Valentina's possession from her mom's house. After loading up Valentina's belongings, they set off to John's apartment, where cameras captured them entering the building together shortly after 7 p.m. The couple then spent the next 2 hours in the apartment before once again leaving together. Valentina had a gig nearby, and John accompanied her to the venue. They returned briefly, but were then seen leaving again to go back to the venue. The couple eventually got home, and according to court records, the demeanor between them was nothing out of the ordinary, and they seemed to get along fine. The following day, January the 21st, John and Valentina spent most of the day at home recovering from their late night out. They only left the apartment to go have lunch, but returned a short while later and spent the rest of the day locked in the apartment. And then cameras captured John leaving the apartment on his own. It's not known where he was going at this time, but footage shows Valentina apparently recording him with her cell phone, and her displeasure was evident even on camera. The following morning, January the 22nd, shortly after 10 a.m., security footage captured John Poulos wheeling out the same large blue suitcase he had arrived with 2 days prior. The suitcase was now covered by a grey blanket. This was because the bag was too small to contain Valentina Trespalacios' body, and her head was visibly sticking out of it. Poulos used the blanket to obscure her head. Just 4 minutes later, cameras spotted Poulos in the parking garage, struggling to load the clearly heavy suitcase into the trunk of his rental car. The video shows Poulos straining to lift the bag, confirming it was now far heavier than when he arrived. John Poulos then sets off, and cameras along the way capture him driving the rental vehicle in the direction of Los Cambulos neighborhood. Poulos stopped near a dumpster in this area, where he abandoned the suitcase containing Valentina's body. He immediately sets off again and drives towards Bogota's airport. cameras showed him arriving at the airport before he boards a plane and leaves the country. That evening, a homeless man who was rummaging through the dumpsters in the Los Cambulos neighborhood came across a blue suitcase with the head of a female protruding from it. He immediately called police, who soon confirmed the body to be that of Valentina Trespalacios. Her body told the story of a brutal attack with extensive bruising on her neck and severe head trauma. Police immediately knew who their main suspect was, and knowing that he held an American passport, they knew that the chances were high that he would attempt to flee the country. Colombian police rushed to place John Poulos on a no-fly list to prevent his escape, but upon arriving at the airport, they learned he had already fled the country, boarding a flight to Panama City earlier that day. What was even more horrifying was that the police learned that John Poulos had purchased onward tickets from Panama to Turkey and then Montenegro, a country that had no extradition agreement with Colombia. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Colombian authorities swiftly contacted law enforcement counterparts in Panama, hoping to intercept Poulos before he flew to Montenegro and was out of their grasp for good. Luckily for the police, they were able to intercept John Poulos just as he was about to board his flight from Panama, and police arrested him and extradited him back to Colombia. Despite the strong evidence against him, Poulos staunchly maintained his innocence and even went as far as to blame Valentina's murder on the Medellin cartel, a now defunct cartel in Colombia that was once headed by notorious gang boss Pablo Escobar. Needless to say, police didn't buy his story, and they charged John Poulos with the crime of femicide. It turns out that just as with his ex-wife, John was also abusive and controlling towards Valentina. He would monitor her social media, dictate who she could speak to, and even go as far as to hire a private investigator to follow her around when he wasn't in the country. Prosecutors claimed that on the night of the murder, an argument broke out between the couple, and John started physically abusing Valentina. This was evident by the amount of bruises on her body. He eventually strangled her, which ultimately led to her death. He then folded her body into the suitcase and dumped it in an attempt to conceal the crime and flee the country. The crime of femicide carries a sentence of 40 years in Colombia. It's defined as the killing of a woman due to her gender and is not a charge which exists in the United States. John Poulos has attempted to exploit this technicality to avoid culpability. He claimed there was no translator present during his arrest, and that as an American he didn't understand the femicide charge. Prosecutors refuted this, stating they fully explained the charges and that Poulos comprehended them. They indicated, if convicted, they would ask the court to sentence Poulos to a minimum term of 50 years behind bars. Poulos maintained his innocence throughout and stated his intention to plead not guilty at trial. In June of 2024, John Poulos was sentenced by a criminal court in Colombia, South America, after being found guilty of murdering Valentina Trespalacios Hidalgo. He faces 512 months in a Colombian prison, equivalent to 42 years and 8 months, for the crimes of aggravated femicide in conjunction with concealment and destruction of evidentiary material. Our thoughts and sincerest condolences go out to Valentina's family and friends, and to all those who were affected by this tragic event. I would love to know your thoughts on this case. To see more gripping stories, please hit the like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. Until next time, take care and stay safe.